Hi, I'm Cliff Haithcock, and I'm going to give a reflection on Father's Day. First, the opening hymn, I sang that to my son 3 times a night for 2 years, so it's just very delightful to have that be a part of our service. So my reflection today, I've been thinking about the arc of my life as a child to a father and my arc as a father to a son, and thinking about just how this all kind of unfolds, and thinking about how this church, Unitarian Universalism ideas, have kind of folded into the way I see this. So I think of myself as a product of my ancestors, their hopes, dreams, aspirations, and as a parent, I now hold the responsibility of passing down those hopes and dreams with my own mix of things I've learned in my life. And so I am both a father, a son to a father, and a father to sons. And I see myself in this like nearly infinite chain of parent to children. And I imagine at times like I'm walking on a hillside and it's very misty, and I can see off to the distance, see my dad, and I can see behind me my son, and beyond that is just mist. And I don't know who came before to some degree, and I don't know what's going to come behind. And so in my personal arc, when I think about being a child, when I was very small, my dad was Superman. And when I was 4, we were walking in the woods, and we came up to a tree, and he pushed it over to the ground, and I was astonished. Now, today I realized the tree was not that big and was very much dead. So, but 4-year-old me was wide-eyed. A few years later, my dad moved away, a couple of states, didn't see him much. And then as I entered my teen years, Oedipus came up and reared its head, and we were at loggerheads for years and years. My dad is a conservative evangelical Christian, so you can imagine the kind of friction that produced through life. So as I got older, I started I have a 30-year-old son, and I have a 12-year-old who's here in RE. And when I became a parent, that became a real turning point in changing how I looked about my dad. And so we now today, we really don't agree on much, but we can talk, and we can actually disagree, and we can be quite civil. And I find myself quite often thinking about the wisdom he wants to hand to me, and in the past I was not interested in hearing it. And but now I look back and I realize there was a time when he was here. He was in his late 50s. And there's a time I'll hopefully be in my early 80s. And so I can kind of think about now, I kind of have this perspective of time passing, and so I appreciate some of the things I've learned in this church to help ground me into this larger perspective, this larger arc. My 12-year-old, I can kind of see Oedipus out in the backyard, lingering. It's coming. We'll see. Give me 6 years and see how he gives his talk on reflection of Father's Day. So, and unfortunately, I'll be 100 when he's my age, so it's unlikely I'll hear this depth of reflection, this age of reflection. But when I'm also thinking about these kinds of topics, my dad, our relationship, my son and our relationship, there's a movie that I cherish called Smoke Signals, of a young man on a journey to reclaim his relationship with his now deceased father. And it's a very challenging relationship. And at the end, the narration is a poem. And the poem is How Do We Forgive Our Fathers by Dick Laurie. And so I'm going to finish with reading this poem. How do we forgive our fathers? Maybe in a dream. Do we forgive our fathers for leaving us too often or forever when we were little? Maybe for scaring us with unexpected rage or making us nervous because there was never seemed to be any rage there at all? Do we forgive our fathers for marrying or not marrying our mothers, for divorcing or not divorcing our mothers? And shall we forgive them for their excesses of warmth or coldness? Shall we forgive them for pushing or leaning, for shutting doors, for speaking through walls, or never speaking, or never being silent? Do we forgive our father in our age or in theirs, or in their deaths, saying it to them or not saying it? If we forgive our fathers, what is left?
Hi, I'm TJ Scaresen. I am the father of Hope, who would be 5, Lena, who's 4, and B, who is 1. This morning, when I was talking to Lena, I said that I was doing this today, and I said that I'm really not a good public speaker. I'm pretty anxious. Do you think it's going to go okay, Lena? And she wasn't really paying attention. She was in her own universe, so her response was just... so that was nice. That was inspiring to me. And then also this morning, after a long, hard morning of a lot of high emotions and behavioral challenges, we were sitting next to each other, and she said, "I'm sorry, Dad." And I said, "What are you sorry for, honey?" And she said, "I'm sorry for you." Well, that wasn't the best apology. It was funny enough to break the tension, so that was nice. So, reflecting on fatherhood, I naturally think about my dad. He has been a great dad. One of his greatest skills is his ability to tell a story. There's almost some kind of magic to it because he can and has told me the same story over and over and over again, and it's great every time. Because his cadence, his emotion, his body language while he's telling it, and perhaps most importantly, his embellishments, are always fantastic. I realize now that it was a powerful parenting tool when I was growing up. In his stories, he was quick to use self-deprecation and comedy through self-deprecation, and through that I learned to be humble. There were no villains in his stories, and if someone was being a jerk or acting inappropriate, he was always curious about that instead of accusatory, and through that I learned to be non-judgmental. Countless stories had tropes of sympathy for those less fortunate, or hard work being the thing to eventually lead to success in the end. I am not the storyteller my dad was. My mom insists it's the embellishments that I am missing in my stories. I get too preoccupied with making details as accurate as I can, and what I need to do is let go and learn and lean into the imaginative. My daughter Lena, at 4 years old, is in a very imaginative phase right now. She doesn't have just an imaginary friend. She has an imaginary school, house, car, multiple airplanes, dogs and cats of varying blues and purples, food like hamburger cupcakes, siblings that are in her belly, and sons and daughters that are teenagers. There are times when she just goes on and on about this whole universe that sometimes sounds awful, but usually sounds pretty amazing. It's clear to me that the storytelling gene has skipped a generation, and I'm excited to see and watch it grow. I wonder if I can somehow use this skill of hers and collaborate with her to craft some moral and foundational lessons like my dad did, essentially reverse engineering what my dad did. The other night we were doing bedtime routine reading, and we read a story about a dog named Pee-wee, who was in a circus because he was so small, like a toy. This was one of those golden books that are sometimes delightful, but sometimes just seem completely without direction or tone to me. In this story, the circus dog, it's made clear that everyone in the circus loves little Pee-wee. At one point, he starts to grow. Eventually, he's the size of a normal dog. The master of the circus essentially says, "Oh no, you're not special anymore, bye-bye." And then over time, eventually the dog continues to grow, and then he's extraordinarily large. So the entire circus is just like, "Hey, yeah, welcome back, everything's fine." And at the end of the story, I turned to Lena and I said, "I really don't like that story. Do you know why?" And she asked why, and I told her how, in my opinion, when you love someone, it doesn't make any sense that a single extremely superficial aspect of them changing would cause you to send them away. Well, she immediately told me, "I have a small rainbow dog named Kiki who got bigger and bigger, and when his circus master told him to go away, I gave him a big hug and held him tight, and then he grew bigger and bigger, and I had to run away, but then he put me on his back, and I rode him around, and I picked up all my daughters and went to school in London and ate purple bacon." And I said, "I have no notes. That's brilliant." Happy Father's Day.
Good morning. My name is Ray Jacobs. Here are the all-time top 20 dad jokes. No, but seriously. Besides the jokes, what is the role of a dad? It can easily be argued that men play but a minor role in the act of creating life itself. So we spend our lives working to create something, anything, that will leave a lasting mark. But the males in our species obviously can and do play a part in the post-birth world that our children grow up in. While we can't all paint the Mona Lisa or compose a symphony, dads help create unique works of art in the form of our kids. These masterpieces require our careful attention in those few short formative years, and then a lifetime to support and watch our works of art develop. As a son then, I saw my dad doing his part. He was of the generation that did what they were supposed to do: get married, raise a family, maybe work at some soul-sucking job to support the brood. Of course, that's what I saw. It may not be how my dad saw it at all. We three kids had a comfortable middle-class existence, and my dad certainly did more than his share to make that happen. He coached our basketball and baseball little league teams for years, carted us around to games and practices, took us camping, and so forth. He later added chef to his resume, making dinners for the first time in his life. I'm sure he was not a fan of cooking, but he stepped up, making hamburger helper his specialty. While I think I may have taken much of what he did for granted, he provided us with stability so that we could lead a fairly carefree childhood. When I became a dad, it became clear how important stability, or the lack thereof, was for kids. Just as us kids were on the cusp of entering college, my dad got laid off from his career job. He searched for work for a year before accepting a transfer that would take him and my mom to the Midwest. I didn't appreciate at the time how this must have been a huge hit to his self-confidence, nor did I ever talk to him about it. A missed opportunity for connection. Of course, my dad wasn't perfect. He was sometimes what we called grouchy. While he was less strict than my mom, discipline was enforced. He never hit us. The fear of it was sufficient. Instead, I spent many weeks in my room, grounded. But he was there and supportive for what we needed. He had a sense of humor. He liked his dry. He also had an irreverent streak and a biting, sometimes frustrating sarcasm. My family wasn't much for expressing our emotions. We didn't really talk about feelings. We just generally sucked it up. Or in my dad's case, he just sucked down another smoke. Relationship-wise, he had varying levels of success with my sister, brother, and myself. I was not very cooperative with him in this department, another missed opportunity. Part of the reason was that I had unfairly high expectations of him. I was unable to comprehend his struggles, to see relentless sarcasm possibly masquerading as depression. Instead, I focused on his shortcomings without appreciating his efforts to do the best that he could for us kids, most likely in that teen phase, right? Fortunately for his sake, my younger brother established a good relationship with him. He deserved at least one kid who could connect with him and acknowledge his efforts. I was left holding the proverbial bag when he suddenly died at the age of 68. By the time I got to the hospital, he was unconscious and on life support. So my words of connection and understanding went unspoken. There should be plenty of karmic payback for a rabble-rousing son who becomes a father. So how I produced a daughter who dealt with so much upheaval and drama in her youth, and yet ended up, oh my goodness, ended up being an amazing, resilient, and caring young woman is beyond my comprehension. Okay, here we go. Home stretch. It reminds me of this expression that kids turn out well, not because of their parents, but despite them. Of course, that's perhaps only true in a tiny fraction of cases, but it underscores the importance of self-awareness and preparation before embarking on the journey of parenthood. I certainly could have honed a couple of skills, listening, patience, that would have helped me. Instead, I mostly made do with that on-the-job training, which felt horribly inadequate at times. And as to my original research question is, what is the role of a dad? My best guess is that it's to be whatever we need to be to serve the best interests of each of our offspring so that they can make their own way in the world. While we might not have much patience or great listening skills or be able to connect much, but we all have the capacity to do whatever is in our power to make our children feel like the masterpieces they truly are. And as far as I can see, I think that's pretty much parent. That was supposed to be a dad joke, by the way. There we go. There you go.
My name is Brian Fassett. My twin brother's first daughter was born while Kate and I were serving in the Peace Corps in Bulgaria. At about the same time, Johnson & Johnson came out with an advertisement that included the phrase, "A baby changes everything." My brother shared that with me, along with baby pictures of our new niece, Michaela. At the time, my travel-fuzzy, Bulgarian-modeled brain took it with a grain of salt. Maybe. But I'm living in Eastern Europe, learning a new language, eating different food, trying to figure out if secondhand smoke is considered an appetizer or dessert, and trying to be competent as a community economic development volunteer. So at the time, I was pretty sure that I was facing a lot of change too. When Kate and I got back to the US and decided that it was time for us to start our own family, we relied heavily on my brother and sister-in-law's advice. We started with a puppy, as they had done, but we got a dachshund, not like they had done. Oops. By then, they had a 2-year-old and another one on the way. Couldn't be that hard. So when Kate and I found out that we were going to have a baby, my brother reminded me that, in fact, a baby changes everything. This time it stuck. And he was right. He also suggested we get a Sears and Sears baby book because those things don't come with instructions. He was right about that too. Luckily, I married the perfect person. Kate threw herself into parenting the way she throws herself into anything that she's passionate about, with unstoppable determination, unparalleled intelligence, and unimaginable compassion. A doctor told her that it might not be in her best interest to get pregnant. That's all she needed to prove them wrong. She became the textbook model for a healthy pregnancy. And she read every book on parenting, literally every book. To this day, she remembers all of the best practices on connection and attachment theory and social emotional development, talking so kids will listen and listening so kids will talk. She went to classes with teacher Lynn a local woman who also is a child psychologist. She went to a new moms group at the hospital and then later went back to lead that new moms group. She attended La Leche League meetings and then became a La Leche League leader, supporting dozens of other new moms in person and over the phone. She quit her job in social work, devoted her life to parenting our two amazing daughters and the dog. So a baby really does change everything. And what did I do? Well, I went to work. I went to work every day, but I had a new sense of purpose. We had a one income household, and I needed to win some bread to ensure that we had good health insurance and try to keep up with my amazing wife. I read a little bit from those books that Kate read, but I didn't retain much. I learned how to swaddle and change and burp and bathe and rock the girls. But somehow, they knew it wasn't Mom. I read to them and sang to them and drove them around in the car on snooze cruises. I became very proficient at changing and washing cloth diapers, and I realized that for the math to work out in this equation, I was going to need some more income. So I went back to graduate school with a toddler and one on the way, and a full-time job in Washington to win some more bread. Occasionally, when I had a lucid moment, I thought about what kind of father I wanted to be. I thought about the men in my life, the traits that I wanted to emulate, and the traits that I wanted to avoid. My avoid list was a lot longer than my emulate list. I thought about my own childhood, my dad, my stepdad, my grandpas, my father-in-law. I thought about my brothers. In every single one of them, fathers differently. And I thought back to my wife. Could I ever measure up to her level of intelligence and care and compassion as a parent? Was it humanly possible to dedicate as much brain space to parenting as she had? She had poured so much time and effort into becoming the parent that she wanted to be that she made it look easy. She still does. She always knew the right thing to do, even when she was dealing with erratic blood sugars, a broken leg, a car accident, thrush, a blood transfusion, a blood clot, a trip to the ER for electrolyte imbalances. Even through all of that, she was still a better parent than I will ever be. But I'm still here, and I'm still trying. Every single day, I'm proud to be a father. And most days, I feel proud of my parenting. Every day that I do something to avoid the do not emulate list, it feels like a little victory. 17 years into parenting, I know a baby changes everything. Through it all, one source of inspiration, besides my wife and my father-in-law, is Kahil Gibran's book, The Prophet. I had a copy of that my mom gave me in high school, and the section on children is my favorite. A couple of the things that really resonated with me from that include, your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. Thank you.
As I was sitting at the dinner table with my family, verbally processing how to put together this service, my very astute daughter, Clara, gently reminded me, "Mom, you're not a father. Why are you doing the service on Father's Day?" I love the way moments like this can lead to inspiration. Right then, I decided I wanted to learn more from the fathers I know. I reached out to the fathers who are here today, speaking from their hearts to you. I also reached out to several friends and my own dad with some questions. I was truly blown away by the responses. Some were short and sweet, others long and very thoughtful. And before I get started, I want to make sure I make it very clear that my heart goes out to anyone who is having a hard time today on Father's Day, and I care about you. I asked the fathers 5 questions, and I didn't include everything that I heard back, but I chose some of the excerpts that caught my heart. Here are some of the highlights. Each statement is a snippet from various different fathers. First question, what is your biggest joy about being a father? Having this wonderful little human in our lives that has become our best friend. Their imagination is so vibrant and unfiltered. They're unburdened by the experiences that teach adults to second-guess themselves. The changes with each milestone. Seeing my kids have the education, chances, and skills that will allow them to be successful in whatever they endeavor to pursue. Watching my kids do a genuine kindness on their own initiative, like learning to share and empathize with others. They're running up to me, hugging me. And from my own dad, without doubt, the one most joyous moment of my life was when I held you in my arms in the delivery room. I would guess this is how most fathers feel about the birth of a child. Question number 2. What is your biggest challenge about being a father? Keeping my family a tight, loving unit during and post-divorce. Keeping everyone engaged in good relationship with both mom and dad. Wondering if I'm sheltering my daughter too much. Time. Hard to balance career and family. This one came up multiple times. So much has changed. School shootings, college and homes are so expensive. Social media and politics are so divisive. Climate change threatens their future and that of their children. I have to respond to my kids in ways I was not prepared for. Just making time for them on a daily basis. One child psychologist reminded me, you can spend so much time on the urgent that you forget to make time for the important. Another one said, children spell love, T-I-M-E. Questioning, am I doing the right thing? Am I setting a good example? Am I overreacting, underreacting? How far do you push your child to succeed versus letting them do it all on their own? And resisting the urge to save them and allowing them to fail in order to learn something pretty tough. Question number 3. Where do you seek inspiration as a father? Much of what I practiced was to do what my dad had failed or refused to do, and to reject most of what he modeled. Of note, variations on that response came up quite a bit. From my own dad, I was inspired by mom's dad and tried to adopt some of his behaviors. I did not have a wonderful role model. I just wanted to be the best father I could and gave all my actions and conversations a lot of thought and consideration before acting. I tried to avoid knee-jerk responses and felt that listening to my children and grandchildren was very important. This is also from my dad. I read a book in college in a mental health class that had a lasting impact. It was called Born to Win. What I remember from the book is to think like this. Everyone is special and unique and should never try to be someone else. Don't limit what you can do, and don't be afraid to try new things. Don't stamp collect, which means always remembering things that others did to offend or irritate you. Just let it go and genuinely forget. Question 4. What is something you wish you could do differently as a father? Some days I search for what I should be doing or how I should be acting, how to be teaching, and I just don't have the tools. I wish I'd been able to spend less time at work and more time at home when they were growing up. Common theme again. I wanted to be more present. I always had the feeling I had to control everything, and while sometimes it was the right thing to do, there are some things that I should have just left alone. I wish we hadn't moved when my oldest was 14. He had to leave his friends and had trouble making new ones. He did okay, but it was hard on him. I wish I would have managed nutrition and health better for my kids as they were growing up. I would try to learn earlier how to listen better, to be more patient, and to set a better example. They do learn by example. When my daughter was about 4, I hit my thumb with a hammer and exclaimed, "Son of a!" I caught myself because she was nearby, but she looked at me sympathetically and said, "Son of bitch, huh, Daddy? Son of a bitch?" I said nothing, well aware of how she had learned it. And our last question, number 5. What do you hope your children will remember about you? That I love them, that I only want the best for them. I hope they remember me as a kind person who was always interested in what they were doing. And I hope they remember me playing the guitar and singing them to sleep when they were young. That I love them and that their existence inspires me to be a better person every day. I hope they remember that their dad loved them, loved their mom, and cared about his family and others, and that I was kind, funny, and up for good adventure. What do I hope they remember about me? That I was there for them and that I was honest with them. I tried to never lie to them, even when it was humiliating or embarrassing or both, to tell them the truth. The happy consequence of that is that they trusted me and still do, and they're honest and responsible as adults. And from my dad, without doubt, that I never did anything to make my children or grandchildren feel less than whole or unworthy. I would like to think that they felt loved, supported, and accepted for who they are. Basically, that they were glad that I was their father or grandfather. I am. I would like to thank all the fathers who helped with my research project and shared their insights. I'm very grateful.